Have you ever had a build that you tried, and you really wanted it to work out, but it just didn't? For me, last league, that was Forbidden Rite. I wanted self-cast CI Forbidden Rite to work out, and it just didn't, because it was a far inferior version of Forbidden Rite totems, and there was nothing I could do to get around that. In fact, I had tried self-cast life-based and self-cast CI, and both were terrible if you compared them to the totem version. I ended up coming up with something that was reasonably tanky, had decent damage, and overall was a functional build that could clear maps very efficiently. But I was far from happy with it. It definitely felt limited, and the biggest limitation was the self-cast itself. However, with this league, with the defensive changes, the reworks, and the new masteries, I decided to give it a second shot. I'm still CI. I'm still Forbidden Rite. This time, I'm cast on crit. This eliminates the entire problem of being self-cast, boosts the damage, and allows me to capitalize on the defenses in new ways. So I present to you the best Forbidden Rite build as of Path of Exile 316 Scourge League, CI Cast on Crit Forbidden Rite featuring Divine Shield and Aegis Aurora. If you like Path of Exile news, build guides, showcases, and information on game mechanics, be sure to sub to the channel. And if you find this video helpful, be sure to leave a like and a comment to feed the algorithm gods. So I'm sure I'm going to get this question a lot, but why CI as opposed to life-based? Isn't it a massive damage loss? And the simple answer is, because it's not a damage loss. Whenever you're playing life-based Forbidden Rite, you have to have a significant investment into mitigating the damage that you deal to yourself. If you do too much damage to yourself, even with 90% chaos res, you won't be able to generate enough life gain on hit to completely mitigate it on single target. This is why, if you get to about 20-30,000 ES due to Headhunter buffs, if you're life-based, self-cast Forbidden Rite, you'll often just die. Your health and therefore self-damage keeps scaling up and up, your life gain on hit remains the same. With CI, you completely solve that problem instantly. I don't do any damage to myself, or I do, but I don't take it, because it's chaos damage. This also frees me up to invest in damage in ways which I otherwise wouldn't be able to. Something else that I noticed that a lot of other Forbidden Rite builds, both cast on crit and self-cast, are doing, is overly stacking projectiles. Very commonly, I'll see someone using Awakened GMP along with Dying Sun. I did some testing on Gruthkull, I used a golden rule, and I had a 100% chance to poison. I tested with base projectiles, I tested with volley support, greater volley support, and greater volley plus greater multiple projectiles. I also tried with and without Dying Sun, and I combined Conk Effect or Ink AoE to see if area was a scaling factor. What I found was I got 5 overlaps regardless of the number of projectiles or the amount of AoE that I had. However, what I did find is the more projectiles I added, the less reliable my damage was. So if I had 6 total projectiles, then I'd get between 4 and 6 hits averaging 5. If I had, let's just say 9, I'd get between 3 and 8, still averaging 5. So for the sake of consistency, and because some of the projectile gems have large less multipliers on them, you should use as few projectiles as you can get away with, which in my case is Forbidden Rite, +1 from the Helmet enchant, and Volley. Alternatively, Volley could be dropped for Dying Sun, but that won't have 100% uptime, and losing the uptime will hurt the single target. I found I could use Conk Effect fine, and it didn't negatively impact my overlaps, but it felt really bad while clearing because it shrank my Cyclone, and I am cast on crit. Now, defensively, this is one of the strongest builds that I've played in a very long time. It's made to face tank things, and it does that beautifully. If you want to see exactly how much it can face tank, then I have a video that'll be down in the description, where I'm face tanking a very rippy depth 600 plus Crystal King. In terms of the damage, it has more than enough damage to do all content. I did 100% Delirious mapping, I did Simwave 30, I've done Uber Elder, Cirrus, and much, much more. Some of which you'll be seeing as the B-roll footage for this video. When it came to making this, the part I really struggled with was the gearing. Not because it's hard to gear this character, but because I wasn't sure what level of investment to talk about. My current gear is quite good, and if you just want to reproduce the items I'm wearing, it's going to be quite expensive. That said, when I initially tested the build, I tested it on a very bare-bones setup that didn't require very much investment at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the things you absolutely need. And if you want to know about the rest, I'm going to include 3 POBs down in the description. A bare-bones version, a decently min-max version, and my character with a mageblood. This way, no matter what your level of investment, you should have a decent idea of what to go for in terms of the slots that I don't mention. starting with the weapon. For a weapon, I suggest using a Gemini Claw. This way you get mana on hit, which solves all of your mana problems, and you'll want to combine it with the mod Hits Can't Be Evaded or Vagans. This way you don't have to worry about accuracy either. After that, you'll want attack speed, crit chance, and if you can get it, spell or chaos damage, but ultimately, the damage mods themselves aren't the most important part of a weapon. For the shield, of course, we have Aegis Aurora. If you can get a krangled one, that's great. The shield is mandatory for the build, and is a good part of why the build is so tanky. For the helmet, I opted to use Crown of the Inward Eye. I could have gone with a really nice rare, but a really nice elevated rare isn't going to be that much better than a Corrupted Crown of the Inward Eye, and it's a lot more annoying to make. Plus, because I'm already an ES armor scaling build, having the increased global defenses was quite good. On the topic of increased global defenses, you'll also want that on your chest piece. On the budget end, you can use something like Skin of the Loyal or Skin of the Lords. Skin of the Lords is especially helpful as it can push the level of your Awakened cast on crit strike up, so you need less cooldown recovery rate to reach the breakpoints you need for a 99 millisecond cooldown. If you want to know more about that, I have a video about trigger breakpoints which will be down in the description below. For a high-end version, you'll want a Grasping Mail with increased global defenses, either fractured or non-fractured. For the gloves, realistically, any ES gloves will do, so don't worry about those too much. I don't expect most people who are playing this build to have a mageblood, but if you do, I strongly suggest using the elemental flasks. Not only will this let you cap out your resistances as efficiently, if not more efficiently than using a bismuth, but it gives you 39% less damage taken from each element, which means your elemental defenses go through the roof, and is part of why I was as immortal as I was with the Crystal King despite him having pen. That said, you absolutely don't need a mageblood for this to work. When I did my initial testing against tier 16 map bosses, Cirrus and Uber Elder, I didn't have my mageblood on, and it worked totally fine. I had gear that was roughly similar to what I have in the most basic POB, although I do think I had a couple differences like a Skin of the Lords instead of a Skin of the Loyal, just because that's what I had on hand. Now, if you need cooldown recovery, you can either get it on your boots or your belt. It will be a Crusader or a Shaper's mod. If you don't need it on your boots, Sintrek are totally fine, or you can use rare boots with Elusive, Tailwind, or both. If you're using Tailwind though, do keep in mind your APS and don't overcycle as that will cost you a lot of DPS. For the amulet, plus int gems, plus chaos gems, intelligence, stat fixing, and ES are all great. Crit multi if you can get it, but it's not required, it's just a good bit of extra damage. For rings, the most important part is minus mana costs. Otherwise, you're going to either run into some mana issues or likely have to use a mana flask. Using an Enduring Mana Flask is fine, and if at any point in your gearing you run into issues, just toss it on. But otherwise, try to get a Despair on hit ring, as this really smooths your clear, and means there's one less thing you have to think about. And for your other ring, just get stats, ES, or resists as needed. In terms of the various jewels and clusters that I'm using, the Thread of Hope is simply a nice way to go get glancing blows. Militant Faith means you don't have to generate frenzy charges, although if you have a way to generate frenzies, you certainly don't need it. Replica Conqueror's Efficiency helps quite a lot as mana can be problematic in this build, like I mentioned before. The Watcher's Eye for ES on hit is yet another layer of recovery. On top of Divine Shield and on top of Aegis Aurora, it really just helps to make you as unkillable as possible, especially when you're taking a lot of hits from different sources and also hitting all of those sources at once. Now, for the clusters, this is where things get a little bit complicated. As I'm not just haphazardly throwing in mods, I'm using them to do specific things. I'm getting Arcane Surge from Arcane Heroism. I'm getting Leech from Thaumaphage. I'm also using Pressure Points and Basics of Pain to round out the crit strike chance for Cyclone to get it as close to 100% as possible, just for the reliability of crits. If you have a 100% crit strike chance on Cyclone, you can easily drop some of these for Eye to Eye and Repeater. Just keep in mind the attacks per second could be problematic. If you need just a little bit, 2 to 4% cooldown recovery rate to meet your next breakpoint, you can get it on an Abyss Jewel like I'm doing in my setup. And of course, Enduring Composure is great, because you're hitting yourself constantly with Forbidden Rite, which means you're always generating endurance charges. Which, in combination with the build's 40 to 60,000 armor, does mean you have an impressive amount of physical mitigation. The reason that I chose Frostblink for my movement skill was after I hooked it up to an enhance, it felt really great, but if there's another movement skill that you prefer, like Shield Charge, Smoke Mine, or Flame Dash, then you're free to use that instead. Anomalous Withering Step with the Enhance is also very nice because it almost fully stacks Wither instantly, and if I use it while I'm channeling Cyclone, then it's not broken by the fact that I'm continuing to channel Cyclone so I can wither everything around me and become a whirling ball of doom all the more efficiently. This build has been super smooth to play, it's quite good at mapping, it can do scourging, it can do really whatever you want. The only thing it doesn't know how to do is die. I've been very happy with it, and I'm proud to say that I've played Forbidden Rite. The first time, it didn't really work out the best. The second time, it's absolutely been worth all the effort. So what build for you has been a white whale in the past, and did you ever end up catching it? Or are you still chasing that elusive Flame Dash Totem build? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.